Hey. Hi, my name's Justice. I'm from Modern Urban Jazz. Record label, 18 years old this year. I've been producing myself for 22, 23 years. This is my man, Scott Metro. Say hi.
Hi.
Early influences. Over to you, Mr. Metro.
Early influences, I suppose, would be electro, really. Early electro and hip hop.
I agree.
Really. Or even going back as far as sort of 80s electronica.
Yeah.
You know, the more poppier kind of stuff that was coming through, you kind of got to hear, and then as it went on, you explored it a bit more and got into things like this. This was my
you love yourself.
Metro,
you love
great
yourself.
beats.
With this
Africa Bambaataa on there,
all kinds of
and
jam, which I believe is on this one also. Which is it on this one or is it on? I don't remember. No, it's on the other Crucial Electro, which is 2, which I have got somewhere, but I can't find at the moment. But Crucial Electro 2 really was my entry into kind of electro and electronic music, along with this one, Herbie Hancock, Future Shock, which has got Rocket on, which I think most people must know. But it's got a bunch of good tunes on it, and really it was when I heard this that I kind of realised that wow, there is kind of some other music out there. The whole thing, when I started Modern Urban Jazz back in '95, was to take our more experimental productions that we were sort of, following the jazz tradition, not so much as putting a harpy trumpet in and a sax, but making it more the free form, no rules, kind of do what you like, that they were doing in jazz, and try to, I don't know, bring that up to date, really.
yeah, it's not a jazz label.
No, we're not a jazz label. We've got jazz in the name of the label.
Yeah, but that's only because it's the influence is the way that jazz is made.
Yeah,
It doesn't stick to any rules.
Yeah, it's non-conformist. There's no boundaries, and the whole thing, Modern Urban Jazz kind of summed up at the time what it was. It was modern. It was urban. We're in a city, and it was like, for me, the jazz of its day, or the jazz of the jazz of the day.
Although in the early days it was a little bit jazzy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
Compared to how it is now.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's how the music goes. You hit certain times and certain styles are maybe a bit more prolific than others, and I just think where we are now is probably different to where we started. But the ethos behind the label is.
But it's coming back round though.
But it is coming back round. It is coming round, and it's coming back round with this. This is Works, and this is basically a collection that goes back over the last 18 years of MJAZZ and brings the work up to date in a more digital form. Because again, a lot of this stuff, when I started, there was no digital. There was no MP3 really. Well, there wasn't. And
There's at least 12 tracks.
At least I think
they're never on digital in the first place.
No, so it was a way to really catalogue those, to maybe archive those together, and some of the other stuff that came a little bit later that maybe, I don't know, kind of needed packaging up with that as well. I think again, it draws a good line between the start and to sort of where we are now. It's Works. It's on MJAZZ. It's a nice filing cabinet here.
Yeah.
This is lovely.
Rusty filing cabinet.
Rusty filing cabinet. We're all about rusty filing cabinet. When did jazz come in? Okay, so I suppose jazz came into the equation. We can go back to Herbie Hancock for a moment, Future Shock, because the guy, Herbie Hancock would have started doing stuff on this label, Blue Note, which is, everyone knows Blue Note. It's a very famous jazz label. And he would have started doing tracks then, which were, I don't know, he's got a track on this one, for instance, which was, I don't know, recorded in 1965. So I guess it was discovering this, him doing electronic stuff, and then drawing that line back. And it's only when you, I don't know, you discover something, and then you go back.
Well, it's like hip hop was sampling jazz.
So we'd go and find where the
You'd
samples come
find,
from.
yeah, because you obviously like the groove that's going on in hip hop.
Yeah, yeah.
So you, well, where's that come from?
Yeah.
You find out. I mean, we used to go to Rare Groove.
Yeah, we did.
Parties and stuff.
Yeah. We did. So I guess it's like that drawing the line and, you know, discovering where things come from and then thinking, wow, that's jazz. And, you know, and then you find, from this you find that, and then you think, wow, you know, that's jazz.
Yeah.
And then you go off exploring, and you find all the different facets of jazz. You get your Roy Ayers, you get your Donald Byrd, you know, Charlie Parker, all these different people.
It's not until they, like, well, in them days, they became popular, like
Yeah.
Herbie Hancock became popular
Yeah.
through rock here. That got him into the pop.
Yeah, into the
thing, and
mainstream,
you
yeah.
go back from that, it's like Kool and the Gang.
Yeah.
Kool and the Gang in the 80s were big,
Yeah.
but they were pretty crap.
They were terrible. Influences. So, yeah. I mean, you know, influences.
Influences is everything, really everything.
Yeah.
Apart from country music, I'm not a fan of country music.
I'm not really.
Or
fan.
rock. But having said that, there are some good rock.
Yeah. There's some elements. There's some elements.
There's
of
a good
rock.
break beats.
Yeah, you know, I haven't got a lot.
I should have brought me Derek and the Domino.
Yeah, that's got some breaks on it. You'll find, and you know, there are some great breaks on rock. I think you can't really discount anything really. You'll always, like we always say, you'll always find a bit on every record.
Yeah.
Most records you've got, you know, and sometimes I try and do it myself. I try and pull out things and make myself sample it just to.
You could make stuff out of anything.
Yeah,
Really.
yeah. I mean, you know,
Take a
of course you could.
kick in the snare, and you got that there. Look.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's Chris Christopherson there, and he's almost. Can you see Chris? You probably can't see him very well, but
Yeah, you kind of can.
well, he's there anyway. He's there. I can tell you he's there, and he's with Rita Coolidge there. And well, this is both kind of what we were saying. This is kind of rock and a bit of country, but there's some samples on it. He's got samples on.
But I wouldn't actively go out and listen to country music.
No, not would I. Not would I. If I was in the country and it was on.
Yeah. What are you listening to now?
What am I listening to at the moment? Well, I don't know. All sorts of stuff. I mean,
Well, I think at the moment we're both going through a bit of a resurgence back to
yeah, you know,
early days.
Early days. I mean, early hip hop. I mean, this is probably the most newest recent record that I bought, which is Do the James on a 7-inch by Casanova, Rudd and Super Lover C, which came out in 1987, and I had their LP Girls Have Got 'Em Locked, which I used to love, and is about, well, the whole album was wicked. It's produced by Paul C, the legendary Paul C, who's no longer with us, who did Ultramagnetic MCs and thousands of others.
Yeah.
You know, that influences me. So, you know, stuff from 1987 really still influences me. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I think I'm listening to old techno, house,
yeah, you really enjoy
rave, getting back into the old rave stuff.
Yeah, I think
Getting the stuff back that we used to listen to.
yeah.
In being influenced from that, always influenced from things in the past. Really.
Yeah. I think
Although there's some good drum and bass around as well.
This-
Likes of
this-
Jason OS. And
Jason, is he down here somewhere?
I've seen him. I have seen him.
Yeah,
But I don't know where he is. He's around.
Nick TVG's album's a good album.
Nick's is very good.
When I Disappear.
Who else? There's a few bits of drum and bass, but I think when you make drum and bass or you're involved with, you know, a loosely speaking drum and bass label, I will always see us as, you know, quite sort of on the edge of drum and bass. I think it does you good to not really listen to a lot of drum and bass and try and be influenced by other stuff. And I think I've always done that actually, because I think as soon as you start listening to other people's stuff a lot, unless you're DJing and stuff like that, I think that maybe creeps into your style, and then you
It's prevalent in
a lot of,
today's.
yeah. Everyone's trying to sound like everyone else,
Well, they do as well,
And-
unfortunately.
and I think with the software and, you know, it's so easy to make a tune now. Sit there and make a tune as we were, and it's too easy sometimes. So I think you need to push yourself. And I think that's why we've just sort of started digging again for samples and stuff.
Yeah.
Because the last two albums that we've recorded certainly have been a lot of synths and, you know, we've sort of made our own instruments, and you know, it's been a lot of sort of electronic sort of programming. And I think, you know, we're just going back to, I don't know, where we started, sort of where the door into it was for us, which is the more organic, the more sampling route,
breaks,
and that's a lot more interesting. And you know, I still love records, and I still love going to record shops or rooting through, you know, second-hand shops. So I know as you do. So and it's.
I've been listening to a lot of radio shows as well. You know, Charles Peterson and stuff like that. You get a wide selection, eclectic mixes. Lots of mixes on Mixcloud, different mixes. You know, a bit of everything.
Yeah, definitely.
But no country.
No country. We watch our guys, the Hot Button Soul Music Archaeology lot. They've got a good show on YouTube. They always play some good, different stuff. You know, it's very similar to this, two guys in the shed, just playing records. But you know, they play all kinds of good stuff. You know what, it's funny because I always knew that I would do something with music. How I knew that, I don't know, but from my teenage years, I did know, and I guess maybe because I always wanted to, I sort of almost made myself be involved in music and do music. Maybe it's kind of one of them self-fulfilling prophecy things, but I always knew, because I always had an interest in music, you know, from you know, discovering hip-hop at the age of 9 and 10, and I think, you know, that's quite a special moment. And then, you know, I just knew, and I think, you know, music's shaped me up until this point now, really. Yeah,
same as, I mean, I didn't produce until, you know, about 10 years ago now.
Yeah, a bit later.
But I was always around people that were producers like yourself and others, you know, the Yarmouth lot, Easy Rollers lot, and BFM and that. And I was around producers and DJs. I've done a bit of MCing myself. I was always there, and I did do a bit in the early days. But I didn't quite get my head around that.
No, I think we had some shared friends though, didn't we? You know, the guys who were doing the rotor stuff on Chill, and
you know, I've got that keyboard now.
That's right. So there were always guys who, you know, who were shared friends, who, you know, who always had equipment, and you know, whether you knew you were doing something or not, you could have a bash around on their Amiga or whatever. And
I was more interested in just going out and partying, basically. And you knuckled down and made the tracks that we went out and partied to.
Yeah, true.
And then later on, I got into it.
Yeah, that's right. And now here we are. And you know, it's good. So yeah, I always knew, and I think you probably always knew as well, but it just took longer because you had other things going on. Yeah. As we all do.
Yeah, life gets in the way sometimes. Definitely. And when you're younger, you don't have a lot of money to spend on equipment. It's easy nowadays to go out and
cheap
buy a laptop and away you go on the laptop. But in those days,
you needed a whole studio, I think, or it was hard to, you know, not hard, expensive to go and, you know, rent a studio. And that's, you know, that's what I did for years, going and, you know, work in the studio with an engineer and record and, you know, pay a guy to, you know, put the leads in, you know, plug that lead in there, press the buttons. But, you know, now it's, that's all in a box, So it's great, you know, things that I wished I could have done 20 years ago. It's magic, you can do it now. It's no problem. You should have been there, man. You should have seen what we had to do.
I went in studios. I was in studios with
MJAZZ. I remember trying to squeeze all your samples into an Atari S950 and having to do some mad things. The thing is, you know, music's more than the equipment you do it on. It's just the idea as well, and the capability of the.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what you use, it's how you use it.
Yeah, I've made music on, I've made probably some of the best music that I've made on the least amount of equipment. You know, when I used to just work on an MPC 2000, which, you know, and I wrote my, I don't know if I've got the album, is it up there, Here's to the Future? No, it's not, but, no, Viewpoints, that is, it's not up there. Anyway, one of the albums I did just after Viewpoints, which is up there for, recording to Substance. I did the whole thing on an MPC just pretty much over a weekend, just sitting there, and you know, so I think it's all about up here, you know. It's all about up there. I'm down there for dancing. Running a label, that's a
labour of love, big time.
Labour of love, and that's why we do it. And for no other reason than the artistic and the musical values and merits.
Yeah, we like to put out different.
You know, we do things. If we're doing a CD, it's you probably can't see. It's very flat based. It's all hand done. It's all hand stamped. You know, it's got the badges. You know, we stand up and we spray these by hand, like the nostalgic futurisms. That's all hand folded. You know, hand cut arrows in there. You know, we've actually photocopied the sleeves and then oversprayed them. You know, it is a labour of love, and you know, we as record buyers ourselves, I think, you know, we want something special, don't we? You know, when you buy something, you want to buy something that's, you know, well done. I mean, for instance, you know, we did this 7. It's all hand wrapped. It's hand stickered. It's got. What's it got? You know, stenciled on here. It's got like it's got the big knockout hole in the middle. You know, little 7-inch slip mat in there. I mean, you know, as a record buyer, Scott, I think you'd agree that, you know, if you saw that in a shop, you'd buy that, and that's you know, as record buyers, that's what we would. Yeah, exactly. And that's what we try and do is bring something special in a world that, unfortunately, is disappearing up its own digital arse, really.
But you have to embrace.
Of course you do. I'm not knocking digital.
You have to embrace the digital.
You do have to. You do have to embrace it. But I think also it's sad. I don't mean to be disparaging to digital there, but I think it's just sad when you lose things like this, something that's tangible that you can hold, and then you know there's, you know, digital's just in the air. Of course, it's something we've all got to embrace it. But I think as well you can do both. You know, you can have your digital and you can have your what's that? Physical. Thank you. Physical. Yeah, I mean, during my career, I've worked under a lot of different. Well, I've worked under a few different aliases, and I have, you know, done many different styles as well. Hip hop. I've done hip hop. I've touched on sort of house, techno, whatever. You know, lots of different stuff. Latin. Bit of Latin, some sort of folk. I've even, you know, folk of
country,
opera. No, all kinds of stuff, band stuff. You know, worked with our pal Miles. He does superimposers. You know, their early stuff. I worked on that with them as well. So,
and yeah, I've got an alias.
Yeah,
I do house, techno, whatever. Other than drum and bass,
yeah.
And
I think as well, the modern urban jazz style per se can pretty much be whatever it wants.
It's not
genre specific. No, it's certainly not drum and bass. All of it. I mean, if you look at our last Modernist 4, this is a prototype CD thing there. There was no CD for it, but it kind of looked. Was there a CD?
Yeah, it was a CD.
Or Modernist 4?
Yeah.
Was there? Yeah. There was a CD. Anyway, I can't remember. There's so much stuff. That's the prototype of it. But
there's only one track on that's drum and bass.
Yeah, and it's very loosely. It's 85, 170 style.
The drum and bass is just a tempo. I find it is just a tempo.
Yeah.
170.
Yeah.
For when I write drum and bass,
you
know, it's not necessarily.
No.
It might not necessarily turn out to be drum and bass, and the Ken and all that you're sort of working on, Chris.
Yeah, you know, it's.
They're 170, but they're
half. They're not. They sound totally. I think it's a good tempo to work at because you can go fast.
Sounds like soul.
Yeah. It's like fast soul.
Yeah.
That's what I saw someone calling it the other day, and I thought that's quite a good term, and it kind of is fast soul. And then when I listen to some of the stuff on Works, it kind of gives me. It is kind of fast soul.
Yeah.
It's kind of rare groove almost in it because it is oldish.
Yeah. Well, some of it is.
Some of it's not, but you know, that's the vibe I get.
Feeling for you, on my mind, I gotta deal with it. What am I feeling for you?
Works. Okay, we'll both grab that. You've seen this before. We've held it up already. Scott's bringing one to the camera there. So yeah, I suppose it is. Yeah, I suppose it's quite a big thing, really. 18 years. I mean, that's a long time for a label to be going, I suppose. I mean, we had a slight hiatus in the middle there where, I don't know, the label was resting. It's like one of them, I don't know, out of work actors, just having a little rest, you know. But still, I mean, to go for that long, I feel quite proud, you know. I feel, you know, and I didn't even realise it was only when I was putting this together, myself and Scott were going through tracks and sort of compiling it, that I kind of actually took the time to work out, oh yeah, well that's 18 years. It's like, you know, it's almost a coming of age. It's an adult now, and I almost feel that, you know, MJAZZ can go off and do whatever it likes now. It's grown up, you know what I mean? It's almost, it's like having it.
Yeah. You know, well, it was that. It works as your baby, really.
Yeah, it is.
You started it off.
Started it. There's a lot of
18 years ago.
Yeah.
I helped you compile it a little bit.
Yeah, and you know, you come in on it. You like it's stepdad. Do you know what I mean? Like you come in. Do you know what I mean? It's nice.
A bit weird.
Yeah, but
anyway, on that note.
yeah, it's got
A certain rhythm.
it's got dynamic about it.
Yeah, there's no like airy stuff.
No, I think everything.
It's all.
I think it all works and it all stands up on its own merit. So that's very good. I like, you know, all the early stuff is, you know, really kind of special.
Well, my favourite's Silent Sequence.
Yeah, you love that, yeah.
Blink, I really like.
Yeah, which is
Always
again
like
a late entry to the track listing.
I think
you remind me that, yeah, you remind me.
And the Christian Perspective one, Love Lost.
Love Lost, yeah, love that. I love
And the Flip.
Survival's remix of, I really like Steve's Survival, big up Steve. I really like Steve's remix of Airsign, which that did come out on the vinyl.
Yeah.
Didn't it? Came out on the 12.
With Christian Perspective on
Chris on the other side, yeah, of course. And there's the other one that I did with Chris on there that I really like, which is that Babe, yeah. Well, it feels great, yeah. You know, it's like we say, it's a labour of love. It's hard work sometimes running a label, doing all the bits you got to do, but yeah, I'm really pleased. You know, we've got a lot of loyal fans out there. You know, we've got a lot of people that check for us. You know, sort of whatever we do, they get behind, and that's nice.
Yeah, worldwide.
Well, yeah, all over the place. You know, and that's something different as well from the old days, because really, you know, drum and bass was quite a UK-based thing. It was quite UK-centric. There was always sales abroad, and you know, you'd always get sales in Germany or France, but I think now you're more able, through social media and what have you, you're more able to connect with your fans and where they are, and I think that's one of the good things now, is you can see who's listening, where they're listening, you can have some sort of, you know, contact with them as well. I think if I could do something with Roy Ayers, I'd be extremely happy.
Roy Ayers, Herbie Hancock.
Yeah, maybe. I think Roy though, Roy out of anyone. I could listen to Roy all day. I think I've said that somewhere before. If I could listen to Roy Ayers only, I'd be a happy man.
How about the Moon? I was thinking the Moon.
Yeah, the Moon, yeah.
Might be a bit hard though, all the records.
Craters and all that weightlessness and...
I said that to my daughter and she said, how about Underwater?
Yeah, maybe.
That'd be even...
You'd be getting all the water in your decks and all sorts of salt in your records.
Sunshine.
The future.
Yeah, imagine the future. Imagine here's to the future. I don't know, we'll just keep doing what we're doing. We've got a few different avenues we're starting to explore.
Yeah.
So, you know, hopefully we'll explore them a bit more. Some different musical styles. I mean, like Metro's alluded to earlier, been like sort of doing some stuff with Napa, or, you know, getting some stuff going. So maybe some sort of hip hop. I mean, because, you know, that's
definitely some digging breaks kind of stuff.
Definitely some different stuff. You know, some bit more drum and bass kind of experimental stuff as you know,
a few things in the pipeline, a few things
as we always do. But I don't know, I just feel maybe a bit of a sea change for next year, just musically and you know, maybe for the label, you know, maybe another label. You know, we toyed with the idea of another imprint. So, you know, who knows? And I think, you know, bringing, you know, really taking hold of MJAZZ and, you know, bringing it pulling it in a bit tight.
My life, and the sunshine.
Scott, have you got any tips for aspiring producers out there? / DJs?
Yeah, just keep it real, really. Keep it. Don't get bogged down with the same old sounds.
Oh yeah.
And the same old software.
Yeah.
Don't be experimental with everything.
Don't try and sound like you're
Embrace the happy accidents.
Oh yeah, happy. They're some of the best tunes come out of happy accidents, didn't they?
Yeah.
So anyway, big love to everyone out there watching.
Right, the bell. Nice one for having us.
Thanks for watching.
Hope we didn't ramble on too long.
I think we did ramble on a lot, but anyway, we're going to play a couple records now, so there will be a guest mix as well, I believe, coming on Bite the Belt, which Scott started and I'm going to finish, so watch out for that.
Really? Inside himself.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we only caught up with later. Anyway, that's Man Parish. Hip Hop Bebop. We'll play you one quickly off Works, but this was the original vinyl pressing, obviously. 1995. Come Alive. Let's see. This one's Atmosphere.